Right, guys. So we have entered a long position here. We have stops below this recent structure down here. Could always extend them a bit because we're looking at this more of a long-term position, which is why targets are all-time highs. And depending on obviously how this breaks out, we can not necessarily have a target and just either extend this or keep moving our stop loss up as we trend to the upside. But I want to look here at the 5 minute chart. Um, we broke down below this level and we finally pushed back above. And I was eyeing this a bit because um, this is obviously a very important level relative to where we are now. And so the fact that we sort of didn't really care about this level, we just wasn't we didn't make a definitive break to the downside and then come up and retest. It was sort of just consolidation at the level. So once we began to move to the upside, we get into a position, right? And so that's what we're looking at now. And I think obviously at some point we can come down back into this level and retest for another entry, which would be awesome. But yeah, just pretty simple. Um, yeah, pretty simple stuff. We have our stop under here, and yeah, I think what we'll probably see is something like this, right? Something like that. And so, we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. We can get potentially another entry here, so we don't want to, try to push things too much at the beginning here. But overall, I am beginning to become very bullish on gold. On gold because um, the with all of what I talked about earlier, with all of the rate news and just the way that the economy is going right now, I think gold is going to have some pretty, in my opinion, pretty historic moves over the next couple months until the end of the year and probably into the new year too. Um, I do understand usually when we have a 50 basis point cut, uh, we will have a large correction at some point in the overall market. But I think overall gold with inflation likely to increase again, I think gold is going to be a really safe bet for lots of long swing positions. And so that's what I'm looking at now. Really, it's like, we came down to test this level. And yeah, we went down a little bit, but like I said, like I always say, nothing will be perfect, right? And we didn't really take this level into account that much. We sort of just broke above, like I showed on the 5 minute chart. And so, yeah, I mean, this would maybe be a little bit too early for some people. And that's, like I said, we could always get another entry here on a pullback into this support to then move higher. But overall, stops under here I think are great. And, you could want to have them like under here. But again, we're looking at more of swing positions now, longer positions. And so I don't want to get caught in a nasty wick down here. And yeah, and then we'll just go from there and we'll see how long it takes to break this high. I don't want us to get stuck in consolidation like this. And if we do, and we can clearly tell that that's what's going on, then I'm just going to look for lows, things like this down at a key level, wherever the key support would be down here. And then just look for a handful of smaller long positions to build a larger position. If that makes sense. So, yeah, anyway. All right, guys, I wanted to give a little update here on gold. Gold has moved pretty nicely. We came up from where we had entered and little retracement and are now working our way back up. I really like this formation here because we did not come straight down back into this zone. We made another higher low. So a handful of higher lows here. So really good, just simple bullish price action. We're at a little minor resistance here. This is obviously, all-time highs we're pushing here on gold. But overall, obviously because of the rate announcement, no reason to be bearish right now. We're really just going with what's simple and what makes sense. And I think stops are fine where they are. Maybe we'll have some drawdown. I'm fine keeping them here. But I also entered a position on silver. Now I had this here as a limit. So we got in as soon as we touched into this zone here. Now this is a zone that I've had marked here for a little bit. If we go up to an hour, we can kind of see it's sort of just a minor support level, but within this is pretty interesting price action when this occurs. But yeah, really just a area of traffic is what we were looking for, and then obviously we came down to this level and respected it as support previously here. and a fairly big stop loss, I will admit, fairly big, but this is something that we can adjust obviously as we go on. I'm very confident in the position, and so I'm fine having the stop loss. Obviously, if you wanted to, you could move it a little bit, or even there if you wanted to. But I would just rather, I'm expecting gold and silver to be bullish here for the foreseeable future. So I do not want to be stopped out in a stupid, stupid way where it was just unavoidable and would have just been a simple drawdown. But ultimately, all we're looking for is just simple price action, and that's what we got here, right? We have a minor level in here. We're just looking for areas of traffic, right, where we have a lot of touches of candles and wicks, and that's what we do, right? We go with the trend. We have our our fundamentals were telling us that metals are going to go up because of interest rates going down, inflation will go up, right? So metals will go up too, unless anything changes, right? Maybe a lot of times people talk about, the Fed cutting rates by 50 basis points because they're afraid, and that usually takes place before a recession. And so, maybe we'll get a large 30+% pullback on the US 30 and all of those indices. But, really we're just going with what we know now, right? If something changes, we can always adjust our plan at that point. But our fundamentals are telling us gold is going to go up, right? And then what are we looking for? We're looking for technicals that align with that. So we're looking for places to go long. This is a great place to go long, right? We have an area of traffic, and yeah, that's really it. I mean, we want to. I sort of like to pair the both of them together with regard to fundamentals and technicals. But anyway, let's look at the 4 hour here. Yeah, nice retest of this level, and yeah. Hopefully we can. And I don't. This is pretty big. I don't necessarily have a take profit. I just have this zoomed out sort of to show that, right? I don't have an actual target. I'm just looking for a large breakout, and I am just going to continue to move my stops up underneath levels of support, right? So for instance, if we were already in a long position, which yeah, I should have been looking back, right? But we didn't know exactly what the announcement would be. Then for instance here we could move our stops underneath here if we were in back here, which would be in profit, and it's the same place we have them now. So really that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for trending opportunities for big trends, and I am moving my stops accordingly as we progress with the trend, right? Um, and yeah, so that's really it. Um, Gold is looking good, and really going long on gold and silver, there's not too much of a difference. I know obviously it's not the same thing, but if we're gonna have increase in inflation through the end of the year, and metals are gonna go crazy, gold and silver, it's gonna be more or less the same. So anyway, decent position there, and yeah, we're just going to wait and see how this plays out. And by the morning, we'll hopefully have a better idea. We're gonna have some pretty interesting news with the Bank of Japan at the end of the week to and finish off the week. And so I think we're probably going to be have to expect a bit more volatility tomorrow. And so that's just something to keep in mind. But um, yeah, we can talk about that tomorrow. All right, guys. I wanted to give a little update on our trade here. It's Friday morning, so um, our previously we were just looking at gold and silver last night, and so I'm in a gold position and a silver position as well. So silver has moved fairly nicely here. What's good to see is that we got in at the right area, right? And so we had this level marked, and I said this last night, but we had this level marked for a while here, and so this was really the level I was looking at to go long because we came down pretty deep in here, pushed straight up very very sharply, right, very violently, and came back down initially to retest this level, which could have been an entry. I missed it. I wasn't watching at the time, and so coming back again into the level was a great place for a buy limit, and then from there we pretty much moved to the upside straight away. Now, obviously, I don't need to have this I need to have this so high. I said this last night, but I'm not looking for a specific target. I'm just, you know, I'm just trying to hold this for a while because I really think that, with all of the, um, with all of the news, the last couple days, I think that gold and silver will be very good long-term plays for long positions. Um, we will have some pretty interesting news today to end the week. So I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to be watching the chart while that news is going on. I'm not really planning on doing anything or changing anything with what I'm currently looking at, but um, hopefully we can move up a little bit more before that in case we do have some volatility. But at least with silver, with gold, gold has moved very nicely from where we entered. It's essentially the same setup. I know it's not exactly the same price action, but it's very similar. Um, Gold and silver. So we have the same sort of level here that we've had for a while, right? We can see this and understand this. Now we come down, right? We come down pretty harshly here. This was the FOMC news, right? So a lot of people were going long, and a lot of people were, um, you know, uh, going crazy with buy stops and that sort of thing, and we just get so much volatility. This is what I mean when I always like to say that I don't really like to trade news like FOMC. If I'm going to trade news, then what I will do is, like, this is a great example, is I will wait until the effects of the announcement are essentially over. So for instance here, we had the announcement, we had a big spike to the upside, corrected, pushed to the downside, and that corrected, and then a couple hours go by, we're essentially through with that, right? Like we can not necessarily ignore that, but we're sort of done with the negative impact regarding volatility with that, right? So then we come back up pretty harshly, right? Same thing that we did with silver. Um, I was looking at maybe a potential entry down here, but I did not, which would have been a lot better, obviously. But then what do we do? So we obviously break the high and we pull back. We pull back into this level, right? And so that is where we go long. We go long not immediately, which you could have. I was a little bit looking at this a little bit differently, and so I wanted to go long once we started to get a. I think if we look at the 5 minute, we can understand it better. Yeah, once we started to get a better move to the upside, where it was a little bit more clear that we were going to trade above this level, right? And so when we look at this, we come down into this level and we just sort of uh, consolidate in the middle of the level, not necessarily. So if we would have just broken straight through and then came up to retest, I would have looked at this differently. But because we came into it from a harsh sell off, somewhat into the zone, and then we consolidated essentially within the zone and started to push back up, that is a lot more bullish in my opinion to me, um, from how I see things. And then when we look at the 15-minute chart, we can see the same thing. But what I'm saying is, like, if we, um, if this 30-minute candle would have been a lot more defined and it would have been a lot more bearish, and then we would have come up later to retest, that's not the same situation here. But a lot of people look at this and they expect these zones to be perfect. And I talk about this sometimes, but um, the zones will never be perfect, right? Like when I talk about targets being general areas and not specific price points or price lines, like you have a support line and you're waiting for that exact price to be met. Um, I talk about these zones being as general levels, and that's the way you want to look at it, right? Because if you were looking at it too precisely here, you would have probably wanted to go short because you would have seen this level being broken, and we had a bearish close below. But in reality, that's essentially just noise, as I like to call it. And so what do we have? We have our very bullish bias, extremely bullish bias, and we have price action, you know essentially adding to that bullishness, right? So we have, we already, because of rates and other news, news about potential inflation, right? We have very bullish news for gold. So fundamentally, we know we're expecting gold to move to the upside, and so we have levels of support like this. And this, if we would have come down lower, this would have been a wonderful level too to go long. Um, and so we look at those levels and we look at the price. We look for price to move into those levels, and we look at the price action at those levels to see, what we're doing, right? So once we start to move to the upside above a little minor resistance here on a 5-minute chart, right, then we can look for a long position. And, we just have our stops a little bit bigger because we're looking for a little bit larger of a move. And so that's essentially what the game plan is going forward for the foreseeable future. That's essentially what we've been doing for a while here on gold is we've been trading. Obviously we've had some other positions, but we've just really been looking for moves to the upside. And there's really nothing wrong with wanting to only look at very trending markets, right? Obviously, we can look back at some of our other long positions, like back here, and think, oh, we should have held that, and I do think that, right? Because I'm trying to hold positions longer in trending markets, and you just can't get it right every time, right? Like here, we were targeting up here, got a little bit too tried to be a little bit too precise. Just what I was talking about. We obviously got out with some profit on the way up, which was good, and then got out with profit on the way down. We were stopped out in profit, um, but honestly, still a good trade. Nothing negative about that. But I guess what we can learn from that, and what you can learn from that, is that these things we want to be holding longer, right? And it's better to hold a trade longer and continue to move your stop loss because you have your stop loss is in profit, and if worst case scenario you get stopped out in profit, and if you have a very trending market like gold, for instance, or silver, or even Bitcoin, but Bitcoin's price action is a bit different. um, the best case scenario is that your profits just keep increasing and you don't have to do anything. All you do is continue to move your stop losses up. So that's why I've essentially over the last couple months, really, I've really transitioned more so into swing trading, or at least tried to. um, my approach now is a little bit, uh, you could call it intraday trading. That's what I like to call it. um, but yeah, over time we want to sort of transition into swing trading. um, and gold and silver right now are great opportunities to do that. If we look at silver's price action compared to gold, I really think that silver is going to provide wonderful opportunities for long positions here in the coming weeks. Um, you know, Obviously, maybe we're going to have some sort of larger correction to the downside. Depending on a lot of times when rates when they cut rates by 50 basis points. I might have mentioned this last night, but they will. That's essentially a prerequisite to something going wrong, and so because why would they not just cut them 25, right? And so a lot of times that follows a couple months or weeks later with a large correction in the market. Now, after that correction, the market resumes being bullish, but that is something to think about, right? Like for instance, this resistance here, I'm going to, although I'm bullish on gold, on silver, uh, once we reach into this level up here, I will probably take partial profit off of this position and wait for a pullback and enter again. Now, I will keep some of the initial position open, which is awesome, and then we can just slowly move our stop losses up, right, as we continue to move. But um, that's another thing is we want to hold these trades longer, right? Let's look at gold. We want to be holding these trades a lot longer, but at the same time, uh, there are opportunities to sell um, before we expect a pullback, right? Like if gold, pushes up very high, uh, a little bit higher than this, maybe, something like that, then I will close maybe not all of the position, maybe a little bit, and leave some of it open, right? Which is what I should have been doing, back here. With the part that we closed up on the way up here, that was great. But then the rest of it, I should have kept open instead of moving my stop loss into profit. Should have kept that open with stops back here, because if it would have came down, we would have still been in profit because of the profit that we sold on the way up, right? And then just hold that long term, right? So we take profits. That's part of my philosophy now. Is what I'm, and hopefully I'm. This is doesn't. Hopefully I'm explaining this decently, but right, we're looking for very trending markets, which is gold and silver right now at the moment, and we're getting in positions like this, right, at wonderful levels, right, because fundamentally we know gold's going to go up. So what do? We look for a good place to go long. That makes sense logically, right? So this is a great support level here, and then as we work our way up and we have a very steep, like large upside move, we obviously long term know it's going to go higher, but we do know that short term we can get pullbacks. And so we can take some profit and leave some open, because the little bit that we leave open over time will greatly increase in profit, right? But I don't want this to seem like I'm just holding trades for, you know, I'm going to be holding these trades for weeks and not taking any profit. I will be taking some profit when I think that we have a likelihood of pulling back. So I just want to make that clear. But overall, the actual perspective, the way that we're viewing this now, is extremely, much bigger picture type of perspective than before. Um, I'm you can utilize the lower time frames. Like for this entry, I utilize the 5 minute chart, right? Um, but that was when I already had a very good idea of what I wanted to happen, and I had everything else from all the other higher time frames were understood in my mind, and so I just used the 5 minute chart just to see the price action at this level here. That's okay to do. What I don't like doing is when people only look at a 5 minute chart or a 3 minute chart. Some people even like to look at 1 minute charts, and that's their basis for trading, and they're looking for you know trades every single day. I'm just not a fan of that. I've done fine trading every single day, but as I continue to trade, um, I lean much more toward swing trading now, and it's because it's almost like I would rather take 2 to 3 or maybe 4 or 5 good trades a month rather than trying to trade 3 to 4 times a day. And that's just what works for me. If you like trading every day, then continue with that, right? But this I think is the best long term play, because if you look at the most successful traders who do the best, most of them are all swing traders, or at least they look at things from a much um, more zoomed out, higher time frame perspective. And so that's really my long term strategy going forward is that. And so um, these trades are good examples of that. Hopefully these continue to go well. I'm going to look exactly what time we have. May have some pretty crazy news with the Bank of Japan today, and so I'm going to look at that, and then but yeah, just a little update. The trades are moving very nicely. Um, Silver just hasn't moved up as much, but um, nothing to worry about regarding the price action here. Still very bullish, and so yeah, that's we have this resistance to look at, right? Not necessarily with gold. It's just that gold is at all-time highs, and so if we really zoom out on silver here, let's look at a monthly. Right, pretty interesting price action. This is a lot different than gold's price action. Now a lot of people get into different theories about maybe silver's price being suppressed and things like that. I'm not necessarily going to talk about that, but um, what we do know going forward is that this is a wonderful chart to build the case for a lot of long positions going very high. I mean, um, we could easily take out this high here, probably reach, double the price we're at now, in my opinion, and probably higher. So this actually looks a little bit more of like a crypto chart, but it's kind of interesting. But anyway, there's lots of opportunity now, and so you know, like I said, we are going to have large scale pullbacks at some point on these trades. Like for instance, silver hasn't really moved up a lot, so maybe once we reach this resistance, we'll have to, just sort of assess things and maybe wait for another pullback for a larger move to the upside. But with gold, uh, you know, we're moving up very nicely, and obviously we're pushing all time highs. So there's no resistance we're looking at to the left, right? So we just have to use common sense, right? If we push up really sharply and very aggressively, we take some profit, and we expect in the coming hours or days we expect a larger pullback, and then we can look for another long position. So and there will be corrections, right? Because you know even with us trending up for a long time here on gold, we have had some short positions that have worked, and so there's nothing against that. It's just that now I think that the bullish sentiment is very high, very 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 high because of the rate news. So that's just something for us to think about. But um, anyway, we will, maybe at the market open we'll get some more volume and we'll see sort of how this progresses, and we'll go from there. All right, guys. So some time has gone on. It is Sunday night. The new weekly candle has opened. Now I wanted to show you something here on the weekly candle, right? Um, Now it would be nice to maybe see a little bit of a larger bottom wick on here on the weekly candle, but I want to look at the 4 hour. It doesn't look like actually we're going to get that. Now we may get it later in the week, um, right? But let's just extend this a little bit higher. I wanted to actually look at the 5 minute chart, which is a little bit odd, but this is setting up very nicely in here. We're not showing signs of really pulling back too much. I think if anything, maybe we come back down into this level within here. But I really like how this price action is. I would have expected an initial sort of a higher volume bearish candle to the downside um, right at the new weekly candle open. We have not gone that. It's more or less just been sideways. So I'm going to actually get into another, yeah, that's about right. Another position here. Now what we're going to do for our stop loss is have it underneath this low down here. I think that's a very healthy place for it because that's essentially a swing low there that hopefully we don't go back to test. And then as far as targets go, you know, same thing I say all the time. We're not necessarily looking for a specific price point. We are just looking for a decently sized move, and that is what I hope we can get here. And as far as the first entry, it's just still, still open, and I feel like it's a decent time to adjust stop losses as well, accordingly to to moving to the upside. So, yeah, that's what we're looking at now. I think we could maybe fall back into this zone a little bit. I just wanted to get an entry in there. And it's not actually as big as this entry down here. It's a little bit smaller because here we're within a range essentially, and we're just getting in at a nice part of a range. Here we are, we're getting in after we have broken out of the range and we haven't reestablished higher time frame highs and lows yet. We just have, yeah, some swing lows and swing highs here on the 50-minute and 5 minute chart. But what I'm really talking about is if we take a look here on the hourly, we can visually see just common sense with our eyes. We're in a range here. Here, we have broken out above the range. And so I wouldn't necessarily want to, I sort of, what I'm saying is I want to risk a little bit less, right? Because of that, the different circumstances there. So anyway, that's what we're looking at now. It may seem a little odd, but, I'm, with everything going on with how gold was last week, I think we're probably going to have a pretty eventful week this week as well. And so that's really what, that's really my thought process behind that. So, all right, guys. So it is Monday morning. We are moving pretty nicely here on our gold position. We can see from where we got in, we are now moving into a decent profit. Like I said, we could have waited a little bit to get in a little bit lower. We did come up and make a high, come down and break this low, but we are now back above this. So the market's going to open here in 9 minutes. And so, everything is looking pretty decent right now. I don't think there's too much to really, give that much thought to. We look here on an hourly, we can see we're just slowly pushing up, right? We may get a little bit of a pullback here, a bit of a dip, and then work our way back up, right? Maybe something like this, right? Hopefully that's, how this progresses. But yeah, as far as silver has not gone very well. We dipped down here, into a little bit of drawdown, but are now back above this level. Um, I think at the moment there's not really a reason to close. We're back above this level where we entered. I think if we were, my stop is in the same place. If we were to come down and break this low, right, like peak here and come down below this level, I would probably just manually exit. But I don't think that is, necessary at the moment. If we look at the daily candle, we're just, wicking and slowly moving to the upside. Not that, we're going to rocket up to the upside bullish, but just to put that into perspective, not going the best right now. And I know that silver has always historically underperforms against gold, right? Sort of like now Ethereum is Bitcoin's silver, right? If Bitcoin were to be gold, that sort of thing. But I'm just going to keep that open as long as my gold position is open, right? Unless anything changes. So, yeah, where we are now, I think we could maybe see, like I said, a little bit of a dip and then continue our way back up. But I think this level will fairly easily be broken. So I'm not too worried about that. And I do think maybe later, not necessarily today, sometime within the week, right, we will probably see a larger pullback because what do we have here, right? We have consolidation, big two large candle breakout, and then pullback, right? Lower time frame consolidation, another breakout. Eventually, pretty soon here, I think, once we go up a little bit higher, we're going to look to close a good bit of the positions, or depending on what happens, maybe all of it, and then wait for something like this to take place again, or something like this to take place again, where we can, the market will cool off, and people will be exiting positions, and we can take profit and look for more strong support to be formed for us to move to the upside again. So that's really what my plan is, especially when we look at the weekly chart here. Same thing. What do we have? We can go back. It's the same story, right? Push up, consolidation, push up, pull back, consolidation, push up. Eventually, I know that we have the really bullish news of rates going down, but eventually we're going to get something like this and something like this, and so maybe we go up a bit higher before that, but I do think we are going to get a pullback in the next maybe couple days. You know, Obviously, if that's not true and I'm wrong, then what we will do is we will wait for a pullback on a lower time frame, like the hour or 30-minute chart, something like this, and we will get back into another long position. But for now, we have the positions open. Um, and like I said, once something changes, then we can look to close and that sort of thing, and expect a pullback. So, but anyway, that is everything for now. All right, guys. So here we are on the 15-minute chart. Everything's looking pretty good. We made a new high here. Pulling back a little bit. There's really nothing to worry about at the moment. I think maybe later today, or if this changes, we can always, like I said earlier, adjust. Um, but it is a bit interesting having two entries and two separate stop losses, because if we come down and are within drawdown on this trade, then what does that mean for the first trade, right? And so that's just something that is a bit interesting when you have multiple entries on one move. But like I said, not really too much of a change. Like I said, I do think that at some point this week we will get a larger pullback, and so I'm obviously going to be monitoring this a lot. I don't want to, necessarily just close this early, but I also want to, like I like to say, take profit while I have it, and then sort of wait for the larger, a larger support to be established, which would, as we know, look like a pullback. Um, and yeah, but I mean, there could be the case where that doesn't happen, right? So anyway, I'm just sort of watching this pretty much every new 15-minute, 30-minute candle, just to see what's going on, and yeah, that's really it for the moment. All right, guys. So here we are in gold. You can see we have moved very nicely here. We've really created a nice new support level here that we have respected and moved away from. And so this would have been a great place for another entry. But I just at the moment I wasn't too confident in it, to be honest. We already had a second entry here. So I, was just having it marked, but wasn't necessarily looking for another entry. And yeah, we moved very nicely here. Now, as far as risk goes, I am happy with this. This would be a great place, obviously, to take some partial profits. I think we're going to come up a little bit more. It's 11, so we're getting a little bit closer to the end of the day, um, end of the trading day, really, for US. And so, yeah, I'll probably look a little bit later, maybe after the new daily candle. I kind of want to see how we close here. It's funny. I was talking about getting, maybe getting some kind of pullback. I was thinking, maybe we're gonna come back a little bit at the beginning of the week, but it doesn't look like that, right? So, anyway, we're moving very nicely, and so I'm happy with the trades. Like I said, I think maybe in a little bit, a couple hours, depending on how the next couple they're all bullish, right, I'll probably look to close part of my overall, or reduce my overall exposure. I guess I should say. And what that would probably look like is closing more of the second entry here than the first, because the first, I'd rather, this was a bigger entry than the second one, so I'd rather have more exposure over time, um, if that makes sense, right? Than my second entry. So anyway, but overall price action, beautiful, perfect. This is exactly what we look for, right? Exactly what we want to see. And this is really kind of goes back to what I've been saying, when we look at these previous trades of trying to, get in positions and hold them much longer. Like I'm thinking back, if, I would have held on to this entry here, right? That sort of thing. And, I do think though we need to take profits along the way. So that is something I am very act. That's like my number one focus right now for today is figuring out where to take some partial profits. Like I said, it's not a bad place to do it here. It's just that, kind of thinking we can get a little bit higher, right? So, but we want to be quick to, take profits when we're really deep in profit, right? Take profit while you have it. But what I really wanted to focus on is silver. So silver, if we look at the percentages here, gold up almost 1%, silver up 4.5%. So historically, gold has outperformed silver continuously. Just if you compare it, you'll see what I mean, right? Silver is always, they call, um, silver is like the Ethereum to Bitcoin, right? So um, from where we got in on our buy limit here, obviously we came up a bit and we bounced around and we came down underneath the support that we got in on our entry. But every time we came down, we continuously, like instantly, came back up and repeatedly were testing this level as support and respecting it as support. And so that, really increased my confidence in the position. Obviously, we have a nice little, um, sort of a trend line here. Is just really, when I use trend lines, I'm not looking at them as like, you know, precise trend lines of, at least three touches, that sort of thing. I'm sort of just looking at the overall shape, right, and the overall, shape of the price action. And here, you can just see this, right? This is sort of, up until this point, this is sort of just screaming that we're gonna go long, right? And so, anyway, I have also thought about this, and I don't remember if I mentioned this, about this resistance up here. Maybe taking some profit as we get up, into this resistance, because we can maybe pull back if we look at the daily chart. Maybe the day will close here, and then the new daily candle will come down and make a bottom wick, and then move up, and so we're going to pull back and that sort of thing. And to be honest, I am keeping this open for now, because this was very strong, right? And we are already, and I know, like I always love to say, zones are not precise. I don't look at zones very precise anymore. They're general areas. And so this would apply to, that applies to this too. I'm not trying to say it doesn't, but I'm really liking this price action, right? If it looks like we're making a bottom wick and we can keep moving up. If this candle, comes down, pretty far here and closes below, then I'll rethink about it. Similar to gold, but it's the same scenario with gold. I'm still confident right now. In the next couple hours, same thing with gold. I will look to maybe take partial profit, that sort of thing. And yeah, I just I'm feeling really good about both of these entries, and so I'm fine holding both of these a little bit longer. But once we get to the close today, like I keep saying, I will definitely look at some options with taking profit here. So anyway, just a little update. Really good trades, and this is sort of what I like, is you also have more time, flexibility with your time when you do this, right? Obviously, I'm continuously looking at at the gold and silver chart, and looking at these trades, right? But you know I am, the actual entries and the actual act of trading was, it's not time consuming at all, right? So you don't have to be sitting here in front of at your desk in front of your screen this entire time, right? We've been in this trade for a while here on gold, especially, and we've had some other smaller ones, like we've been looking at yen a lot recently and that sort of thing. But um, it's not a time consuming thing, right? You can, I spend a lot of time on the weekends getting my analysis done and really, really, really deep diving into the charts, and I'll sort of restart my analysis, repeatedly. That I talk about that a lot, but that sort of thing. And but during the week, once you're actually in positions, all you're really looking for is you're looking to see what is changing, right? So if you're continually going deeper in profit, you're looking at levels where you can should be looking to take profit, right? And if not, then you're looking at the price action to see if anything's changed and changing. So that way, if it does change, you can either readjust your risk, right? Take profit, close a loss early, that sort of thing. So the actual act of trading is really not what's time consuming. It's just a little bit of the analysis, and once that's done, right? Like for instance, we don't need to do a whole bunch of analysis to know that gold is in an uptrend, right? And so we've done that, right? And we know the fundamentals. We've done all of that, and so all we're really doing is just managing throughout the day. So yeah, that's sort of what's been nice is having a little bit more flexibility as of recent, especially with these gold moves here. So anyway, just a little bit of a rant and a little bit of an update. But yeah, you can see we're moving nicely here on this candle. I want to look at silver one more time. Yeah, moving pretty decent. But like I said, I'm not going to be too stubborn. I'm going to take my own advice. I am going to be taking profit, partial profits, and leaving a little bit open. But like I said, it's all about if monitoring to see what things are changing. Right? You can't predict. Right? We're at all time highs on gold. Okay, we're not going to predict the exact top here before we pull back and have some sort of consolidation. That's impossible. Maybe we can guess and maybe we're right, but we're not going to know for sure. So really, all we're doing is just trying to use the principles and sort of common sense, what we already know, to move forward. So I hope that makes sense. But anyway, just a little update here on these two trades. All right, guys. So some time has gone by. It is 1:30. We have moved up a lot. So this is now the place, like I said earlier, where I'm going to be really taking profit, taking a decent bit of profit, and I am leaving a little bit open, right? Obviously, like I said, long term, I think we are really going to be moving to the upside, clearly, right? It's just that now we've had a pretty crazy day here on gold, and so I'm going to be taking some profit. And when we take a look at silver, yeah, we came down and we respected this level as support and have since made a new high, new local high here. But it's the same thing with silver. I'm just so what we're really looking at here, what we need to focus on is the dollar index. So um, we're having a meltdown here, which is really contributing to and essentially causing right the large run on precious metals right now. We've been at this support for a while and have been testing this multiple times, and we just broke through. So my view is really, if you look on a daily chart, same thing. We broke through this level, have not closed yet though. I think we're really targeting this next level down here. We can adjust this depending on time frames, right? But give or take this level, right? And so I think we have more distance to go down before a larger correction. It's just that I think at the moment, right? So I'm still very bearish on the dollar index, right? We had this massive support here. I mean, this goes back a long time, right? And we finally broke below. We've been retesting it, and we are now pushing below after retesting it as resistance. So, yeah, so we're definitely going to be moving lower. I do think though on a shorter time frame, if we look on like an hourly chart, right? Yeah, we broke below this. I think as we get later to the into the day here, and maybe with the new daily candle, we're going to come back up, maybe into this level or maybe a little bit higher, sort of to retrace. And I think that will correlate. If we look on gold, that will correlate to um, some pullback maybe into one of these levels, previous levels here. But yeah,